Okay. Just what? Ladies and gentlemen. Hey God, things are happening. Things are happening. So I listened to Faith and Jasonjae's late night conversation. As a matter of fact, that conversation was had in the early hours of this morning. Yeah. I listened to that conversation and it was very interesting. As a matter of fact, it was very interesting. Now, it was very interesting because Faith, how do I put it? I think it was more about Jasonjae schooling Faith on the games people play to get ahead in the Big Brother game. Yeah. It was more about him pointing out those strategies, like strategies that are very, very common season in, season out of the show, that current housemates in this season are deploying, and it has been working for them, unbeknownst to some of the housemates. Now, some have clocked it, but others have not really clocked it. And Faith was one of those housemates that had not clocked it. Hence the reason his reactions have been very, very big. Yes. And so these two were marrying information together, marrying knowledge together of what they have been observing, what they have been experiencing in the house. Yeah. There's old knowledge marrying, new knowledge. And it was just very refreshing to see. Very refreshing. They cited a lot of examples, and even I myself, reflecting on those examples, it was just very, very hilarious. So we're going to get into this video, and we're going to unpack the details of their conversation and then analyze the things that they shared, right? And the information they shared, they exchanged between each other, all right? And of course, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. So please make sure you watch the video to the end. Don't skip out in any part. There's a lot you do not want to miss out on, all right? And you are all welcome to my channel. My name is Glory Elijah. This is Frankly Speaking with Glory Elijah, and I am the girl with the tea. Quickly, let's dive into the details of this video. Okay, now, beginning from where the cameras picked up from, Faith was sharing about the pot situation between himself and Doris. I don't know if you all recall that whole kitchen and pot situation where there was cooking going on. K-Bobo was making food for the general house, and then Faith, thinking that the other pot was also for the general house, I'd gone ahead to try to open the pot to see what was cooking. And then it turned out that Doris was the owner of what was getting cooked in that particular pot. And then instead of her to tell him, she had just gone ahead to smack his hand. And then when he had revolted, like, okay, why would you smack my hand? And she was like, oh, don't touch my food. If you touch it again, I'll smack your hand. And knowing fully well how Faith can be daring, he had gone ahead to touch the pot again, and then she had smacked his hand, and then they had a back and forth, and he had used the water bottle, the drinking water bottle, to hit her hand, and then she had made a big deal out of it. And for an entire Sunday, she was ranting and calling out for Big Brother to address Faith, that Big Brother is supporting Faith, that Faith hit her hand with a bottle. And the way she used the word bottle, she made it look like Faith carried an alcoholic drinks bottle, to smash her hand, and then she fractured her wrist or something. So Faith was sharing about that whole incident. Now, for him, it wasn't even that much of a big deal. For him, he thought it was just a playful thing happening. But then the next thing he knew was Doris calling him a little man. And he was taken aback. And I was wondering, like, okay, hold on a second. This is now getting really serious. From where to where? And according to him, she tried to escalate the whole situation. And because K-Bobo was there, I mean, guys, imagine the contrast. K-Bobo looking like a giant, and then Faith looking like David. So it was more like a David meets Goliath type of situation. So Doris was more like, oh, look at you, compared to Cable, but look at how small you are, look at how tiny you are. So Doris was more like belittling him, body shaming him. And according to Faith, in that conversation with Jasonjae, he said, listen, that he wasn't even perturbed, because for him, as far as he's concerned, even though he's 4 feet or even 3 feet, that he will still make his presence known. In fact, his presence will still be felt in the house, because he does not need to be loud to be felt or to be heard. And it was like, he just felt like that was just an unnecessary provocation. For him, it was just so strange how the whole thing escalated from just a pot situation to a body shaming situation. It just did not make sense to him. And as far as he's concerned, aside the props for task, that Doris did not matter to him personally. He did not see her. She did not matter to him at all. And Jasonjae, interjected and said, well, that there were actually several situations that even happened unbeknownst to Faith. And then he had cited an example of one time when Doris was upstairs in the dressing area, and then she had said something about, oh, Faith has been too quiet for some days now, that she wants him to talk. She wants to hear his voice. And so Doris had gone to pick up Faith's boots and had thrown each of the pair in different directions. And then she has sat down on one of the sofas there and was waiting for Faith to come upstairs and react. And so Jason said he had seen that, and then he had just quietly gone around, picked up the pairs of the boots, and had put it back in Faith's locker. And then Faith had come upstairs, but Faith did not even know what happened. And Faith said, yeah, that he had actually known that, he had noticed that someone had actually touched his boots. And so they carried on with that conversation. And the point Faith was, rather Jasonjae was trying to make to Faith is that in the house, it's a strategy of people provoking people, of people setting traps for people, of people instigating things to provoke people so as to draw reactions so that they will react and then they will get highlights from it. But then unfortunately for them, where it involves Faith, it becomes a thing of Faith's reaction being way bigger than their own reaction. And so Faith's reaction gets the highlight and not the people who instigates the issue with Faith. And you see here, for Faith, that was like a eureka moment, because he literally said, yes, that exactly, that is the point. Because that was exactly what he was trying to explain to the whole house. That's, I think, 2 Sundays ago, when they were all gathered in the what's it called now? That staircase area upstairs, right? He said that was what he was trying to explain to Kola. That when Kola called him an instigator, he was trying to explain that no, that the problem with this show or with the whole house is that everybody does not see the genesis of everything that happens in the house. That if they did see, they would have noticed that 95 to 97% of the time, he's not the instigator. He's not the one that initiates a problem. The only difference is that his reactions are always big. He said that this is the same issue he has with Thelma. That Thelma, has been for some time, earlier in the weeks, had been proclaiming to the whole house that, oh, she knows Faith's strategy, that Faith's strategy is to poke you, provoke you, and then sit back and watch you yap and get you, and just get you all riled up. And Faith said that was the one bone of contention he really had with Thelma. As much as he respected Thelma, respected her as an individual, that was the one thing he had as a bone of contention against her. That if she had paid attention, that she would have noticed that every time he gets into a fallout with someone, people never ever see the genesis of that situation. People never ever see that he was triggered, he was provoked. But because he has a big reaction to everything, that is what people now focus on. And then they call him a provocateur, they call him an instigator. And ladies and gentlemen, coming from me, that is a fact. That is a fact. And you see, if you've been watching all my videos, if you've been joining our YouTube live conversations, especially those ones that involved faith altercation with people, there's always been one question that I've always asked, that why should Faith be the bigger person when his fellow housemates provoke him, when they trigger him, when they say malicious things to him, when they say demeaning and derogatory things to him and do things to him, like an Assyrian rat coming to bite somebody and running away? Why do people always blame him for his reactions? Why do people give grace to the housemate who initiates the provocation, but then they blame Faith, they drag him, they label him, they call him all sorts of names for giving a reaction, forgetting that for every reaction, there is an action, or for every action, there's an opposing reaction. Why is that the case? Now, they did not stop there. Still on instigations and provocations to draw reactions from Faith, Faith had cited another instance where Joanna and Ruboy had planted banana peels on his locker just to provoke him, just to get reactions from him. According to him, that was in week 2, as at the time, he and Joanna, they were not yet friends, like they had not really bonded, you know, that it was all a playful thing, but they were really trying to trigger him because they knew at the time that he was a neat freak. He does not like having things like that around his corner. So they had done it anyways, you know, waiting for him to react. And for him, if he had known that it was Joanna that did it at that time, that what he wanted to do was he wanted to throw that banana peel in the face of the person that planted it in his locker, because it just did not make sense. And Jasonjae was laughing because he was aware of that situation. He knew what was happening at the time. So Jasonjae went ahead to admit that what Faith was saying was actually true, that, you know, because of how vast everything happens in the house, how much there are a lot of people, a lot of times when things happens, you do not really see the cause of those things. What you see is the reaction of the person that is reacting. And guys, you see here, this is one conversation that we've had several times on this channel. During the Big Brother All-Star season, when this situation between Pere and Alex was happening consistently, Alex continuously poking and provoking Pere, there was a question that one of us asked, that why is Big Brother not doing or saying anything at all? That is it until somebody reacts in a bad way, like somebody really gets out of character with their reactions, is that only when Big Brother decides to step in and then gives out his verdict, reads out the rule book, and then, you know, gives punishment or strikes where the need be? Is that how it works? Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens every season. We get people, housemates, not people, housemates who deliberately, premeditatively provoke, trigger, instigate. They do all of these things. And as much as Big Brother mentions all the time that, oh, these things are actually violations in the rule book, but we still see Big Brother turning a blind eye to all of these things. These housemates doing whatever they want to do, right? And where the person that they are attacking does not react or respond, it's like Big Brother does not do anything about it. But when the person now reacts or responds, especially the person really gives a big reaction, you then see Big Brother step in. When he steps in, if the person that reacted, that's the victim in that situation, if the person kind of violated a rule in the process of their reaction, the person also gets a punishment alongside the person that started triggering them, that started provoking them. And we've always asked this question, why is that the case? Why? But we all know the answer to the question anyways. We know that it is all for the show. It is all for the entertainment. The show will not be as controversial as we want it to be if these provocations do not happen, if these reactions are not given. And it seems like for Big Brother as well, at the end of the day, it's a business. The show has to run. So Big Brother will not step in when a victim needs help. Instead, he would wait for that thing to happen before he now decides to quote the rule book and then give his verdict and issue a punishment or a strike if he chooses to. And there are certain cases we know that Big Brother should have issued more than a strike or way more than a punishment, but Big Brother would choose not to. Why? Because he is enjoying the drama and the chaos from the provocateur. And for Big Brother, whether he says this or not, the provocateur's actions are needed to drive traffic for the show. And the continuous reaction of the victims in such situations is also good for TV, for the show. So it's like the existence of the show is heavily dependent on these instigations, provocations, and reactions. So ladies and gentlemen, listening to these two guys' conversation last night, especially about, the areas of provocation and instigations, was just quite interesting because, for Faith, it was just alien to him. According to him, his family would be shocked. His parents would be appalled at his reactions because they know him to be a very quiet and chilled guy. But for him, ever since he came into the house, everything is just shocking him because he's seeing how people are literally going out of their way to provoke him. And he's wondering, like, why people acting stupid? Why people acting mad? Is everybody okay in this house? So for him, he's seeing different shades of madness. He's seeing different shades of craziness from individuals who on a normal day, that these people should have sanity. But it seems like for the sake of the show, they just throw away their sanity and they just want to be moving mad. And that was where Jasonjae was explaining to him that, listen, if you have been watching the show, you will know that this is one thing that sells: the controversy, the gbasgbos, that the gbasgbos, it sells. That is what these people live for. People go out of their way to give that kind of drama to buy longevity in the game, and it works. And ladies and gentlemen, Jasonjae did not lie. Now the conversation moved on to sub-stories, and ladies and gentlemen, this one was so real, very real. And we're talking about how housemates have been able to utilize sub-stories a lot. And they mentioned that the two people that really do that a lot, that do it the most, are Menson and Emisi. That at every given opportunity, they're always emphasizing on where I am coming from, where I am from, where I am from. Especially Menson. That Menson's own has been clocked by almost everybody in the house. Because every time Menson is always, oh, I've never entered a plane before. Oh, I don't have money to buy iPhone. But then according to Jasonjae, there was a day that Menson slipped off. Like, he mistakenly spilled information that exposed the fact that he's not a poor boy, that he's actually a rich guy, that he's actually even kind of popular among celebrities, that the information that Menson shared unknowingly was that one time he had been flown from Port Harcourt to Lagos by Adekunle Gold and his team to come and stand in as, the fake Adekunle Gold, probably for a music video or probably for a concert. And ladies and gentlemen, this is something that music artists do from time to time. There's a particular guy on TikTok that Burna Boy used as his clone. And if you see this guy and Burna Boy, this guy is he has a splitting resemblance with Burna Boy. It is like the splitting image of Burna Boy. So according to Jasonjae, when Menson shared that information, it was a slip up. And the guy did not even notice that he had slipped. But at every given opportunity, it's either Menson is crying or he is telling a sub story about how he suffered, where he's coming from, how he cannot even afford to buy an iPhone, how he doesn't have money in his account. Like, this guy is always trying to really squeeze out the subbest of the subbiest type of stories. And then it started making sense to Faith, because according to Faith, even though Menson is his friend, that now, listening to what Jasonjae is saying, he's just reflecting back on his different conversations with Menson, and he has realized that every time he and Menson speaks, most of the time the guy will say that, oh, these housemates, they don't want to listen to his story. Every time he starts, they just walk away, or they ignore him, or they avoid him. They don't want to listen to his story. They don't want him to share his story. That doesn't know why. They don't like him. And for him, he used to feel like, oh, that is not fair. Everybody deserves to be listened to. Everybody deserves to be heard. But now Jasonjae is explaining all of these things to him, that is how the show works. Sub stories is what gets you the money. And that is why there are people that play that card the most. And according to Jasonjae, he's not one of those people that will come onto a Big Brother show and use an experience that really altered his life and shaped his life, either in the best or in the worst way, to come and, play the game, use it as a strategy. That is his personal experience. So why would he want to bring such a story, such an experience to live TV, and then people are not going to listen to him and then belittle it or dismiss it and say, oh, he's just doing strategy. He's just doing strategy. That God forbid for him to do such a thing, because it's really going to break him. It's really going to hurt him. And he did not stop there. He went on to cite certain instances where maybe there's a general conversation in the house, or maybe there's a group conversation in the house, and he is trying to explain something, and then it happens that, he stumbled upon a conversation that he has to now share a story about his own personal experience, that you'll notice that people will start shifting, people will begin to, they'll begin to fret like, oh, hurry up, I want to also tell my own sub story. So it's like a chain reaction. When you are telling a story or an experience in the house, people are listening to you to be faster with your story, so that they too can jump in and also share their own sub story. And for him, he noticed that, especially for the likes of Menson, every time there's a camera around the corner, Menson gets into character, and immediately he begins to tell a sub story about, how his mother suffered and suffered and suffered, about how And guys, you see, I listened to Jasonjae, and see, I was just laughing so hard. Why? Because Glory Elijah has clocked all these things from the very get-go. And I informed you all, especially Menson's one. I wasn't surprised at all, because I told you all, right from Menson's first diary session of the season, when this guy went into the diary room and was crying and forcing the tears more and more, as though he wanted to flood the diary room with his tears. I told you all that it was fake. A lot of people are saying that, let a man cry, let a man express it. It's fake. It is fake. Always talking about how things are really hard for him, how he's very, very poor and wretched. I'm thinking, dude, how did you go to law school? How did you go to law school? You look at most of the things that Menson wears, and it makes you wonder, like, dude, for someone that claims to be going through poverty, because it's a difference if he talks about, in the past, this was where I'm coming from. But the way he tells his story is trying to create the impression that even till now, him coming to Big Brother's house, things are very rough for him. Things are very bad for him. He did not see food to eat even before coming into Big Brother's house. Look at the things that Menson wears. Look at the things he wears. Look at his outfits. Those things are not cheap. So let's assume that, okay, maybe his community did donation and gave him money to go shopping. Really? You want to believe that that is the case entirely? For culture that comes from the heart of Ajegunle, for a rude boy too, that said that, okay, it was culture that actually said that before coming to the house, somebody gave him 800,000. Another friend of his gave him 400,000 to go shopping to buy clothes, right? Look at the things that culture was wearing in the house. Compare it to the things that Menson was wearing in the house, or still wearing in the house. Which is more believable? I'll leave you to answer that question. Now, they also started talking about Imisi's one. Faith was at the point of explaining about Imisi's acting. Yeah, Imisi's acting. According to him, he actually clocked that the story Imisi was sharing about her poverty, a poverty story, a poverty background and whatnot, that it just might not be true. And then he said there was one day, okay, before that, he said she would always talk about, how poor she is, how this and that had happened. And then one day, he spotted a pair of sneakers that she wears in the house. And this was in the early weeks. He said she was wearing a Yeezy something, guys. I literally had to go and check out the shoe. Yeah. He said she was wearing a particular Yeezy shoe. And guys, whether it is the cheapest Yeezy shoe or if it's the most expensive Yeezy shoe, we know that anything from Yeezy is expensive. I saw a lot of our fans, claiming that, we know that there are a lot of dupes in Nigeria, there are a lot of fakes in Nigeria, and then some of our fans were saying that, Imisi said that the shoe belongs to one of our friends, that she borrowed it from her friend. I say, oh, okay. But anyways, Faith was explaining, and then he said he saw her wearing those shoes, and then he pointed it out to her that, okay, this shoe, you say that this is where you're coming from, but then you have these pair of shoes that are quite expensive. He said after I pointed it out, ever since, Imisi stopped wearing those shoes. That she's never worn those shoes anymore. That she stopped wearing those shoes. So the question is, why? So Faith was not allowed to finish explaining himself. The cameras immediately flew away. And so for the rest of the morning, I'll be the night and the morning, we were watching people that were sleeping and snoring. Ladies and gentlemen, it was such a refreshing conversation because everything these two guys spilled, I have personally explained to all of you. I have analyzed it, I've exposed it, I have clocked it, I have shared it with all of you. And that is the reason why, for me personally, you see all those, the streets made a king, the streets made a queen, I'm from the streets, I don't give a fuck about any of those things. Hence, the reason I told you all that this season, focus on who played the game to entertain you, who gave you things to think about, who gave you things to talk about, focus on the housemates that really entertained you the most. And that's why I'm going to stop this video. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. So please go ahead and share, and I'll see you all on another episode of Frankly Speaking with Bbnaija. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.